You know that awful feeling after a big argument where you're thinking, yes, I totally own them, and then reality hits. They're avoiding your texts, giving you side-eye at the office, or talking behind your back. Ouch. Meanwhile, some people seem to effortlessly win the hearts and minds of everyone from their boss to their barista. How do they do it? Today, we're cracking open part 3 of Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, focusing precisely on how to guide others to your way of thinking, without manipulation, drama, or turning them against you. And let me tell you, if you're stuck in a rut, professionally or personally, these insights might be your golden ticket. Oh, and fair warning, about halfway through, I'm going to reveal a shockingly simple persuasion secret that most of us overlook daily. Once you catch it, you'll never handle a tricky conversation the same way again. Sound good? Then let's go. By the end of this video, you won't just understand these techniques. You'll be itching to apply them, whether you're texting a friend or leading a Zoom meeting tomorrow. Trust me, you'll be completely drawn in. Most of us crave genuine connections. We want people to get us, support our ideas, and genuinely share in our excitement. But let's be real. Sometimes our well-meaning efforts backfire. We snap at a minor critique, or we unintentionally repel others while trying to persuade them. Why does that happen? Why can a single hint of disagreement make us double down defensively? And why do some individuals effortlessly influence the room while the rest of us struggle just to be heard? Imagine having a brilliant proposal for streamlining your team's workflow. You eagerly present it and bam, instant rejection. Or you're debating a hot topic with a close friend and the moment your views clash, the atmosphere sizzles with tension. Sound familiar? Well, Dale Carnegie saw this very problem nearly a century ago. How do we bridge the gulf between our best intentions and how people actually react? In part 3 of his classic work, he gives us a toolkit for building bridges. No manipulation, no shouting, no heavy-handed arguments. Instead, he shows us how to draw people in so they actually want to engage. Stick around because by the end of this video, you won't just know what to do, you'll know how to do it. We'll explore eye-opening examples and sprinkle in modern psychological insights that make these principles pop in today's world. All right, let's get straight to it, chapter by chapter, starting with one of the most jaw-dropping truths of this entire part. You can't win an argument. Dale Carnegie begins with a counterintuitive yet incredibly bold statement. 9 times out of 10, an argument ends with each of the contestants more firmly convinced than ever that he is absolutely right. Think about it. Have you ever truly won when you hammered someone with facts and logic until they just gave in? Probably not, because forcing a win in an argument usually breeds resentment. He tells the story of a dinner in London, right after World War I, where a man insisted a quote was from the Bible. Carnegie knew the quote was from Shakespeare, but in correcting him publicly, he only embarrassed the man. Carnegie's friend gently reminded him that, why prove to a man he is wrong? Is that going to make him like you? This line zaps us because it's so true. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Carnegie also references a salesman who lost countless deals because he'd argue with prospects. By the time he was done showing off how right he was, the prospect would say, "Yeah, you told me something, but you sure didn't sell me anything." We've all been there. The rush of righteous adrenaline, the feeling of gotcha. And then the crash when we realize we've turned the other person against us. Carnegie's principle is simple. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Now, this isn't about being passive or never standing up for yourself. It's about choosing your battles and, more importantly, choosing the way you handle them. Sometimes, a gentle pivot or a well-placed question saves more face and relationships than all the bullet-pointed evidence in the world. Imagine this: you've been working long hours, but your partner feels like they're doing most of the household chores. One evening, they say, "You never help around the house. I'm always the one cleaning up." Your instinct, defend yourself. You're tempted to fire back. "That's not true. I just did the dishes yesterday and you're exaggerating." But what happens next? They double down. The conversation turns into a back-and-forth scorekeeping match. Each person recalls past grievances, and before you know it, what started as a minor complaint becomes a full-blown argument. Instead, using Carnegie's method, you could try, "I totally get why you feel that way. I know you've been handling a lot lately, and I appreciate it. I don't want you to feel like it's all on you. How can we divide things more fairly?" What happens now? Instead of arguing, you validate their frustration and open the door to a solution. They feel heard, and now you're working together instead of against each other. Chapter 2 flows naturally from the first. If arguments push people away, telling them they're wrong basically does the same. Carnegie references Theodore Roosevelt, who famously said that if he were right 75% of the time, he'd be happy. If that's Roosevelt's success rate, how about us? Then Carnegie hits us with a crucial insight. Don't start by announcing, "I'm going to prove you wrong." Because that's basically telling someone, "I'm smarter than you and I'm about to demolish you." Instant tension, zero cooperation. He also quotes Galileo from over 300 years ago. "You cannot teach a man anything, you can only help him to find it within himself." In other words, slip the knowledge into their minds without setting off alarm bells. Socrates, the OG influencer of ancient Athens, used this approach by asking questions that led people to discover truths on their own, rather than telling them, "You're a fool and I'm right." Carnegie talks about a business scenario. A woman named Catherine Allred tries to fix her workplace's incentive system. She storms into a meeting convinced she's right, telling everyone, "Here is how you're all wrong." Surprise, surprise, it blew up in her face. Later, she changed her tactic. She started by asking where others saw problems, letting them feel heard. She teased out their ideas until they literally suggested her own system back to her, and boom, conflict melted. The key principle from Carnegie's text emphasizes on to show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, "You're wrong." Why is that so hard sometimes? Because we tie our sense of self-worth to being right. We want that quick ego boost, but as Carnegie cautions, it's a Pyrrhic victory. You might get to say, "I told you so," but you lose trust, relationship equity, and real influence. This is the flip side. Sometimes we are actually in the wrong. What's the best approach? Carnegie's advice is exhilaratingly straightforward. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Why? Because you diffuse the other person's anger, you reclaim the moral high ground, and you replace hostility with empathy. He gives a delightful anecdote. He used to walk his dog Rex illegally without a leash or muzzle in a park. A policeman chastised him, threatened him with a fine. Carnegie tried to comply, but eventually got caught again. The policeman confronted him. Carnegie immediately said, "Officer, you caught me red-handed. I'm guilty. No excuses." The policeman's response. He softened and let him off with just a warning. By condemning himself first, Carnegie took the wind out of the policeman's sails. The policeman then had no ego-driven need to punish him. By fighting, you never get enough, but by yielding, you get more than you expected. In essence, if you know a reprimand is coming, beat them to it. This might feel counterintuitive. Our reflex is to defend ourselves. But the psychological twist is that by admitting your errors, you show integrity, confidence, and humility all at once. Now let's look at a modern example. You make a mistake at work. Instead of blaming the software, your coworker, or technical difficulties, own it. Explain how you'll do better next time. Watch how quickly the tension dissolves. People appreciate honesty more than you might think, especially in an age where deflection and finger-pointing are rampant. Now we come to one of Carnegie's warmest analogies. A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. You might recognize a variation from Abraham Lincoln, who said that if you want someone on your side, first prove you're their sincere friend. You can bury them in facts, data, or guilt, but if their heart is resentful, logic doesn't stand a chance. In 1915, John D. Rockefeller, Jr., faced a stormy strike in Colorado. Workers hated him, they practically wanted him lynched. So he visited the camps, listened, showed human sympathy. Then he addressed them in person, referencing how he'd met their families, turning enemies into allies by simply appealing to mutual respect and decency. No intimidation, just empathy. The results? The violence de-escalated and workers went back to their jobs willingly. If a man's heart is rankling with discord and ill feeling toward you, you can't win him to your way of thinking with all the logic in Christendom. But how does this work in real life? Let's bring this into family dynamics because let's be honest, sometimes the hardest people to win over are the ones we love the most. You adore your spouse, but that one habit, maybe they always leave dishes in the sink or never replace the toilet paper roll. Your impulse might be, seriously, how hard is it to clean up after yourself? But hold up, what's the honey? Try leading with appreciation. Hey, I noticed you've been really stressed with work lately. I appreciate everything you do for us, and I know the little things at home might slip through the cracks. How can we make keeping things tidy easier for both of us? Now, instead of defensiveness, I work all day, I don't have time for this. You're inviting them into a solution-based conversation. Imagine you're trying to persuade someone. Carnegie says, Don't start by harping on disagreements. Instead, find common ground first. He calls it the yes, yes approach, based on the Socratic method. That is, you lead the other person through a series of questions or statements they already agree with, so they're in a positive, receptive mindset. Why does this matter? Once someone says no, they often cling to it for the sake of consistency. Pride enters the chat, but if you begin with questions, they must say yes to like, don't we both want better teamwork? Wouldn't it be awesome if our families got along better? They're nodding. They feel validated, not threatened. By the time you reach your main point, they're far more open. Think about how skilled negotiators operate. They never open with, here, where you're wrong, buddy. Instead, they might say, we both want to solve this quickly, right? We both value fairness, yes. That's the magic of small, consistent yesies. Let them see you're on the same team. The moment you get into us versus them, you're losing momentum. Key line, get the other person saying, yes, yes, immediately. Okay, let's talk friendships. Ever had that one conversation where things started tense? Maybe someone felt left out or you had an awkward miscommunication. Instead of going in with, hey, we need to talk, what you did really upset me, which triggers defensiveness, try this instead. Hey, we've always had a solid friendship, right? Yes. And we both value honesty between us? Yes. Cool, so I just want to clear something up because I really respect our connection. What happens? You set up a positive, familiar foundation before you bring up the issue. Their mindset shifts from defend mode to listen mode. The result? A much smoother conversation without the unnecessary emotional landmines. This chapter reveals a secret about listening. People who feel frustrated or upset often just want to unload, and if you cut them off or interrupt their rant, you amplify their anger. Carnegie calls it the safety valve. Let them talk, let them release steam, let them vent. Once they do, they're much more willing to hear your side. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Carnegie highlights that sometimes we're too eager to demonstrate our own brilliance or jump in with solutions. But ironically, that approach can be counterproductive. If someone's full of pent-up frustration, they can't absorb what you're saying until they've cleared that emotional clutter. You see, this isn't just about corporate negotiation or historical anecdotes. It's about the everyday moments where conflict bubbles up. Let's ground this in situations we all recognize. You get a text from your best friend. Can you believe they canceled on me last minute again? I always prioritize them, but it's like they don't care. Now, you could reply with, maybe they're just busy, or try not to take it personally. But nope, that's not the move. Instead, validate first. That's super annoying, I'd be upset too. Let them get it all out. Only then, once they've cooled off, can you gently ask, what do you want to do about it? Want to set some boundaries with them? Because by that point, they feel heard and now they're ready for solutions. Ever notice how we're more likely to buy into an idea if we think it's ours? People are much more likely to support an idea when they feel like it's theirs. Carnegie highlights this as a crucial strategy for winning people over. If you present a fully formed plan and demand compliance, people often resist. But when you invite them into the process, they feel a sense of ownership, which fuels creativity, engagement, and commitment. This isn't about manipulation, it's about collaboration. Instead of dictating, ask questions like, what do you think we should do? Or how can we improve this? This small shift from giving orders to seeking input fosters partnership rather than resistance. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. You're a manager needing to cut costs. Instead of slashing budgets unilaterally, gather your team. We have to reduce expenses by 10%. Let's brainstorm together. How can we make this happen in a way that's fair and effective? People will often surprise you with innovative suggestions, and they'll own the outcome because they were part of the solution. In this chapter, Carnegie focuses on seeing things from the other person's viewpoint. This is the bedrock of empathy. We all want empathy, but ironically, many of us struggle to give it wholeheartedly. Carnegie suggests a simple shift. Pause before you speak or judge. Ask yourself, if I were in their shoes, how would I feel? Why might they be acting this way? He references how arguments often melt away when we see that the other person isn't malicious or stupid. They're just perceiving the situation through their own lens. Show them you appreciate their perspective, and you'll instantly lower their defenses. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Research in social psychology indicates that when people feel understood, their brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone. They shift from fight or flight to trust and open. So it's not just a moral principle, it's a brain hack. On your next phone call, try saying something like, "I get why you'd be upset. If I were in your position, I'd feel the same way." Notice how that transforms the dynamic instantly. Carnegie nails a universal longing here, the need to feel understood and appreciated. He calls it being sympathetic to the other person's desires. That doesn't mean you always agree. It means you acknowledge their wants as valid. He tells us, be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. We're all looking for acceptance. Even the most hardened cynic craves a shred of empathy. When you show that you get what they're aiming for or that you see the logic behind their position, even if it conflicts with yours, you open a door for real communication. You can do this with your teenage kids. They want independence or a new phone or to stay out late. You might have different rules, but if you respond with, "I understand you want more freedom. I remember being your age and itching for independence too." That shows compassion. Then you can discuss boundaries from a place of mutual respect. In Chapter 10, Carnegie says, appeal to nobler motives. People generally see themselves as fair, honest, and generous. If you remind them of this self-image, they often live up to it. For example, if you need someone's cooperation, you might say, "I've always known you to be a person who prides themselves on fairness. That's why I'm coming to you with this issue." The idea is not flattery or manipulation. It's like telling a child, "You're always so kind to your little brother." Even if they're not always, that line can nudge them toward that kindness because they want to be the person you describe. Key line, appeal to the nobler motives. You're negotiating a refund with a company. Instead of raging, try, "I know your brand stands for great customer service. I respect that you want customers to feel valued. That's why I'm sure we can work out a fair solution here." You'd be surprised how often the customer rep warms up, going the extra mile to preserve that moral self-image. This is where Carnegie invites a bit of dramatic flair. He says, if you want your ideas to stick, show people rather than just tell them. Dramatize them. Movies hook us with visuals and emotion. Advertisers do the same, why can't we? Dramatize your ideas. You've got to pitch a new safety protocol. Instead of reading bullet points, do a quick demonstration or show a short video clip that reveals the risk of ignoring safety. People remember experiences more than they remember facts. Exactly why I'm layering these stories and analogies here today. It's not enough to recite bullet points from Carnegie. We want to live them, see them, feel them. In your own life, transform a plain request into a mini story or a quick demonstration. If you're trying to show your child why healthy eating matters, show them a quick experiment about sugar in soda or talk about how certain foods impact your energy. Make it vivid, and you're far more likely to engage them long-term. Final chapter of Part 3, the challenge. When all else fails, challenge people. Carnegie discovered that many folks have a deep competitive drive. They want to excel to prove themselves. If gentle persuasion hasn't worked, invite them to a friendly contest or throw down a constructive challenge. Throw down a challenge. Carnegie cites examples of managers who were struggling to boost productivity. Then they turned the task into a game, challenging employees to break previous records or surpass their personal best. Suddenly, morale soared and everyone pitched in. The key is that the challenge should be playful, not humiliating. You want people to feel recognized for stepping up, not belittled for lagging behind. Whether you're at the gym, at work, or even trying to get your kids to do chores, framing it as, "I bet you can't do X in the next 10 minutes, prove me wrong," can spark that "I'll show you" attitude in a positive, motivational way. It's the same reason smartphone fitness apps give you badges and achievements. It taps into that deep-seated desire to accomplish something measurable and be recognized for it. We've covered all 12 chapters in Part 3 of Dale Carnegie's legendary book. Now, let's convert these insights into 5 super practical steps you can put into action right now. Number 1, use the 2-question trick. Step A, ask yourself, what's our common ground? Shared goals or values? Step B, ask the other person a question that yields a guaranteed yes. For example, don't we both want to find a fair solution here? Or we both want to keep the peace in this family, right? Immediately they feel aligned with you. Number 2, practice 90 seconds of listening before speaking. Next time someone is upset, let them talk for 90 seconds uninterrupted. This is the safety valve approach. You'll be stunned at how quickly the tension drops when they feel fully heard. Once they're done, paraphrase their main point. "So you're saying you felt ignored during the project, is that right?" This signals deep understanding. Number 3, preemptively acknowledge your mistakes. If you sense a confrontation about something you messed up, lead with vulnerability. Hey, I realize I dropped the ball on that. I'm really sorry. I should have done X, Y, Z. The surprising result. People's anger usually melts, and they'll often reassure you that it's not such a big deal after all. Number 4, sprinkle honey at the start. Before you criticize or request a change, begin with a sincere compliment or understanding. I appreciate how dedicated you are to this team. I do have a concern about the approach, though. This is that drop of honey, the opening that keeps the lines of communication warm. Number 5, challenge the competitive spirit when appropriate. If positivity and empathy aren't enough, invite a friendly challenge. Let's see who can reach 10 sales first this week. Or, I challenge you to show me a more efficient system. Keep it playful, but harness that innate motivation so many of us have. These steps might sound simple, but the real power comes when you consistently apply them. Let's just say you'll start noticing fewer conflicts, deeper relationships, and a surprising ability to persuade without force. As we come to the end of this extended journey through part 3 of how to win friends and influence people, remember, these principles aren't about tricking people or wearing a fake smile. They're about genuine human decency, respect, and empathy. That's why they resonate across generations, why Carnegie's words are just as relevant now as they were decades ago. We started with the question, why do some people effortlessly connect while others push folks away? The secret sauce is in how you make people feel. If you approach each encounter with the spirit of wanting them to walk away feeling valued, heard, and understood, believe me, your influence grows naturally. I'm reminded of that beautiful principle. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Logic can't crack a closed heart. Only empathy, respect, and curiosity can open that door. Or as Carnegie might say, sprinkle a drop of honey, not a gallon of gall. So here's my final challenge to you. For the next 7 days, pick at least one principle from this video each day, like admitting your mistakes swiftly or starting each tough conversation with something friendly, and apply it wholeheartedly. Keep track in a journal or note on your phone. Observe how your interactions evolve. Then come back here and comment your experiences. And speaking of experiences, if any of these chapters or quotes hit you like a revelation, drop a comment below. Did you try letting someone do all the talking first? Did you find a creative way to say, I might be wrong? Did it change your outcome? Let's share those stories. We're all in this together, learning how to connect more deeply and create more harmony in our day-to-day lives. Remember, these aren't just tips for winning an argument or scoring a business deal. They're about building true relationships, forging deeper connections, and becoming the kind of person people want to be around. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more content like this, where we unpack timeless wisdom for modern life, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Smash the like icon if you're feeling extra generous, and share it with a friend who might need these insights right now. Let's spread the goodness, one conversation at a time. Thank you for watching. Remember, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Now go forth with a drop of honey in your words, a bit of humility in your heart, and watch how people start warming up to your way of thinking.